Welcome to Scarlet Tavern. Grab a drink, take a seat, and let's begin. Tonight we're diving deep into the wild, weird, and wonderfully creepy world of Reddit ghost stories and can't sleep stories. You know that place where your average keyboard warrior becomes a paranormal investigator and where picks or it didn't happen doesn't quite hold up when it comes to things that go bump in the night. From haunted basements to spirits that just really need better Wi-Fi. These tales will have you questioning every creak, shadow, and flickering light. Grab your EMF meters and let's see if Reddit can spook us. This is Scarlet Tavern. All right. So this is going to be kind of a free form. There's really no structure. We have two different Reddit threads. We're going through ghost stories and then no sleep. So we're going to kind of bounce back and forth and then we'll read them and then see if we believe them to be true, or if we've had any similar experiences, stuff like that.
I used to love the ghost stories, the campfire ghost stories when I was a kid. What was it, that little book? What was those little books you used to have with the really messed up drawings? Like, Are You Scared of the Dark? Or something like that. Are You Afraid of the Dark? Great show on old Nickelodeon, still with the creepiest opening.
Show creeped
The
me
Crypt
the
Keeper.
That show creeped me the fuck out.
Such a good show.
Oh, it did. I'm a 36-year-old man, and that entry still creeps me out. I can't go into an attic without being like.
Okay. Well, let's start. This one is titled "My Imaginary Friend" by Reddit user AnySide7983. Growing up, I remember playing in hide and seek in the funeral home morgue my uncle worked at while the adults played games in the Great Hall. My mom is Wiccan, my father agnostic, and my aunts and uncles are a mix of atheist, Catholic, and occult obsessed. This becomes relevant later. My cousins and I got very comfortable with the idea of ghosts and demons and spirits and such. Our parents would remind us not to talk to things in the dark, don't give them names, and to keep a buddy system when we played. Some of us were as young as 4 years old and as old as 12. When I was about 5 years old, my mother had woken up in the middle of the night seeing me standing in front of her closet. The more she woke up and she tried speaking to me, she realized I was transparent with glowing red eyes. She realized then that whatever was in her closet wasn't me and went running to my room across the hall. As she entered my room, I was waking up from a nightmare. When I opened my eyes and lifted my head, I saw a man in front of my closet asking me to follow him. He was tall, gray skin toned. He had a long, white, pointy beard, red eyes, golden teeth, pinstripe suit, brown and red detailing, tall gold cane, and a crow head handle, and a tall top hat. He barely fit my room floor to ceiling. He also had a big, vicious white wolf. When I asked who he was, he said he was my grandfather. He said he wanted to bring me to my real home. When my mom entered my room, I was screaming and crying, begging her not to let him take me. She only saw a large dark mass around my window and closet. She came and grabbed me, and I spent the night in my parents' bed. I've seen him very few times since then, typically in crowds, typically when I'm feeling really uncertain. I don't acknowledge him. I haven't given him a name, and every time he finds me, he motions for me to follow him. Each of my aunts and uncles, as well as my mom, have cleansed every house and room I've lived in. I have little knickknacks and such that are meant to help purify my area and protect me. I have always had very vivid dreams and nightmares. I remember each one clear as day. The one where he has visited me always ends up a bit fuzzy, though. What should I do about my imaginary friend?
Well,
that is creepy.
I'll be completely honest. To me, all of that stuff, that to me would look like a version of Odin.
This sounds like a case of the house isn't haunted, you're haunted. Something's latched onto to the guy.
Yeah, because I've seen glowing red eyes before.
Yeah.
Not here.
So
please let us know if that ever does happen.
Do we believe that's true?
I mean, I believe in a sense it's true, but this is one sad, bad part about hauntings when it's someone that's clearly an individual. Sometimes, depending on the person, but sometimes it could be an onset of a form of schizophrenia. People
Yeah.
start seeing things, they don't see anything, so could be that. I can believe they're seeing something, but again, is it a haunting or is it just some mental illness? Who knows?
So we're going to jump over to Reddit No Sleep. This is called I Found My Old Diary and Something Is Wrong with It, by Reddit user CoolChange7987. Okay, so I don't usually post here, but I need to tell someone because I feel like I'm losing my mind. This started a week ago when I found my old diary from when I was 10. I hadn't thought about it in years, but I came across it in a dusty box in my attic while I was clearing out some stuff for a garage sale. I was excited at first, like a piece of my childhood. Started flipping through the pages, reading about my fifth grade drama, crushes, and random little notes about my day. But then I found something weird. There's an entry in the diary that I don't remember writing at all. It's dated March 16th, 2011, which would have been the day after my 11th birthday. God, I feel old.
Yeah.
It starts off normal. Me talking about the party and the gifts I got. Then it takes a turn. There's a section where I wrote, Mom says I shouldn't go in the attic anymore. She says it's not safe, but I keep hearing the whispers up there. Last night they called my name. I froze when I read that. I didn't remember anything like that happening, but the writing was mine, or at least it looked like it. After that entry, the diary goes back to being normal, talking about school and friends. I tried to brush it off as a weird childhood memory or maybe my imagination running wild. But then things started happening around the house. Little things at first. I'd hear creaks in the attic above my room at night. Figured it was just the house settling. But then I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate footsteps. 2 nights ago, it got worse. I woke up around 2 a.m., the sound of something moving upstairs. Not just footsteps, but dragging. Like something heavy was being pulled across the floor. My heart was pounding, but I forced myself to go up there and check. And when I opened the attic door, the dragging stopped, but the air felt thick, like someone was watching me. Yesterday, I decided to read more of the diary, and I found another entry that I definitely don't remember writing. It said, he's in the attic again. He wants me to come back. He says he's lonely, but I don't want to go up there anymore. Mom says it's dangerous, but he keeps calling my name. He knows I'm scared. Here's the thing. My mom never said anything about the attic being dangerous. In fact, we rarely used it when I was a kid. So where did this come from? And who the hell is he? Last night I woke up to whispers, not creaks or footsteps this time, actual whispers. I swear to God I heard my name just like in the diary, but when I went to check, the attic was empty. I don't know what to do. I'm starting to feel like I'm losing it. I thought about burning the diary, but something is stopping me. I keep thinking maybe I'll find answers if I keep reading, but I'm also terrified of what I might find. Has anyone else experienced something like this? Could this be some sort of childhood trauma resurfacing? Or is it possible for an old diary to somehow change? I need advice.
Sounds like it's just a really cool story.
I think it could also be childhood trauma.
Eh,
I think it's creepy.
it's
It
definitely
is creepy.
creepy. Come play with us.
Okay, don't. No. No.
Start hearing that from the
Please
attic.
don't. No. I'm already probably not going to sleep tonight, so.
Okay. So we'll stick with no sleep and then we'll go back to ghost stories. This one is called Polaroid Man by Reddit user AP Clariot. I didn't understand the object Freddy shook in my face or why he was so excited. Halloween night in 87 wasn't as illuminated as today. It's a picture, he yelled and spat into my face. Look, look. I put my pillowcase down and held his wrist gently to see the fuss, a Polaroid picture with Freddy in his sad pirate costume. When I looked more closely, however, I saw the singed boy beneath. Polaroid Freddy looked burnt to a crisp, his skin gone, the eyes melted away. Freddy snapped the picture from my fingers. Isn't it cool? He studied it again. Like a magic trick. Best Halloween ever, right? It's cool, right? He continued to bully me for validation, as 10-year-old boys do until I relented. It's cool, Freddy. Where did you get it? You know Mr. Malcolm's house, super green lawn guy, tells dirty jokes at the bus stop, the weirdo pervert, that guy? Freddy nodded enthusiastically, missing my intended sarcasm. Everyone usually avoided Mr. Malcolm's house on Halloween and every other day. The man constantly invited kids inside for candy and conversation. I don't know if anyone accepted that offer. I hope not. Yeah, Freddie confirmed, but there's a young guy on the porch, probably his nephew or something. He's got a mega spooky demon mask, and he's got a camera, and he takes your picture, and it prints out all freaky like mine. And whoa, Freddie, I said. He got overly excited. Freddie had something wrong with him, a weak heart maybe, though I can't recall exactly what we were told, other than he could die should he get too worked up. Our teachers told us to look out for Freddie, so I did. It's great. Calm down. I started breathing with him and held his hand. He smiled. Thanks, man. Want to see? I smiled back. Yep. The photo had creeped me out, but also fascinated me. I didn't want to be the only kid who missed out on something cool. Judging by the line extending down from the walkway, bending at a right angle onto the sidewalk, it seemed I might. There had to be 50 kids waiting for their photo. Polaroid pictures aren't fast. They don't present an image until at least 10 minutes had gone by. The guy on the porch wore a thin mask with horns that really seemed to grow from his forehead. A mouthpiece displayed jagged teeth. He carefully placed the undeveloped photo on a shoe rack at his side. You don't shake Polaroid pictures, you wait. And so we waited. He could have simply given the white rectangles to the eager kids before the image showed, but he didn't. Instead, after taking a trick-or-treater's photo, he sat cross-legged on Mr. Malcolm's concrete slab of a porch and stared at the child. Some kids tried to talk with him. He didn't answer. Others waited in silence, bearing the stranger's gaze with admirable defiance. One little boy began to cry. His parents ushered him away before he could collect his photo. I remember thinking how fortunate I was that my parents let me trick or treat on my own. I would get my photo. I would endure the awkwardness of the adult gaze. Time ticked on. It was late. Some kids gave up and left the line to my delight. Freddie yawned and said he had to go. I thanked him for telling me about the Polaroid man. I probably wouldn't have come down Ferry Street otherwise. Mr. Malcolm creeped me out too much. Luckily, a few other school friends were revealed by the departures, May DeFranco and Vicky Rand. They'd already gotten their photos but hung around because May's little sister wanted one too. Can I see? I asked, pointing at the photos. They were grotesque and I could hardly bear it. May's body appeared popped open, entrails spilling from her guts and onto splintered remnants of bone and muscle. Only the pink princess dress she wore as her costume identified her as the corpse in the photo. Vicky's was far worse. Her dead body had been tied at the wrist and ankles. Her pale face appeared stunned at the mutilation of her body. Top half had been pulled apart from the bottom, and there were more tortured dead around her in a dark field. Cool, right? Vicky said. It's like Freddy Krueger or something. You've never seen Freddy Krueger, May said. I hadn't seen A Nightmare on Elm Street either. I never have. At the time, I assumed the contents of the photo were typical horror movie stuff. I wasn't ready for it, but I wouldn't let my discomfort show. After May's sister got her photo, more kids thought better of risking their worried parents' wrath. They left, and after one more boy got his photo, my turn came at 11:42 p.m. My parents were probably pissed off by 8, so I figured, wrongly, I wouldn't be in more trouble for continuing to stay out way past the time I should have been home. Though I did have second thoughts, especially when I realized no other kids remained. I would be the last, and I was alone with a devil-masked man. Don't smile, he growled. I adjusted my face quickly to obey. He snapped the picture and sat on the stoop. We waited. The last leaves on the trees hissed a warning in the wind. Their dead brethren skittered away down Ferry Street. I could hardly breathe as he stared. There were no visible eyes in the sockets of his mask, only oily voids, an unfortunate trick of the dim porch bulb. It had to be. The feeling in my stomach called for a quick escape. I think I need to go, I told him. His hand gripped my wrist hard. I squirmed. It's okay. I can pick it up tomorrow. He did not let go. His face, that mask, got close to mine. He was perfectly quiet. No inhalation or exhale as he forced me to stay put. Please, I begged. I want to go home. In the half-inch space between our noses, he slid the developing Polaroid. This close, I could barely see anything. Then the devil's mask appeared in the photo. Then I, or what would become of me, materialized. The Polaroid featured us together, his hands around my neck, my face empty of life. I yelped and pulled away. He let go and I fell onto the walkway. He stood up and tossed the photo with precision. It landed beside me on the grass. Further details of the horror were revealed. A swath of blood matted my hair and soaked the front of my costume like a gory bib. The man in the devil mask had done more than strangle me, according to the image. I backed away, a reverse crab walk of cumbersome doom. He hadn't moved because he could catch me anytime he liked. His first step knocked his camera off the stoop. It clattered and a piece shot away from the impact. He didn't seem to care. Please, I pleaded with him. I don't remember the specifics of how I got up and ran down the middle of Ferry Street. I only recall the chase was brief because I made a mistake and got cornered in the variety store parking lot. The store, Brothers Variety, had been closed for hours. There'd be no help there. The streets were empty. Most people were asleep. How I knew this or thought about it in such a terrible moment came down to dumb luck. I backed into a pile of leaves bunched up with fake spider webs that had blown off someone's house. Stuck, I raised my arms defensively and caught the time on my digital watch, the wrong side of midnight by 12 minutes. His fingers caressed the sides of my neck. I closed my eyes and started trembling uncontrollably. Pain would be next. Great pain, the photo promised, and death. No, I tried to shout, but it came out like a squeak. Halloween is over. It's over. It's done. You can't. I don't know what I was saying or why, but the fingers retreated and he took noiseless steps backward over cracked tarmac. When he reached the sidewalk, he spoke. See you next year, then. As if it had been a prank all along. He walked away casually. It took far too long for me to go the opposite way. Eventually, I managed a slow jog, working through the blocks to get home, where my mom waited in the front window, worried and angry. Punishment was left up to my father. When he returned from searching for me, I told him about the photo and the guy in the mask. He received the information passively before grabbing a baseball bat and calling his brothers. Together, they went to Mr. Malcolm's and discovered the busted door in the backyard. The old man had died in his chair, completely naked. My dad told me this last detail some years later. Police were called, but nothing came of whatever investigation might have followed. My parents had and have no faith in the Bridal Veil Lake Police Department. Hence the reason he called his brothers and picked up his bat that night. Evidence of the devil masked man existed, of course. Many kids had their photos taken. No police or adults asked about it, as far as I know. Mine had been left on Mr. Malcolm's lawn, but Freddie, May, and Vicky said they still had theirs at home. Freddie's, however, likely burned up in the fire the following Christmas. His dad made the mistake of using a space heater in the garage. All of them, including Freddie, were dead the day before Christmas Eve. I refused to go trick-or-treating the next year and everyone after that. My parents understood and didn't pressure me. Within a few years, I aged out of the tradition, but still wouldn't risk going out for a walk on Halloween night. See you next year, then. And if not, the next, or the next, or the next. He waits. I know because every photo has turned out to be true. Vicky simply disappeared before her 19th birthday, and while her body was never recovered, a man suspected her of torturing and killing half a dozen young women in Bridal Veil Lake and Derry across the border was arrested as the likely culprit. May committed suicide off the old casino hotel last July. My son is 5 now. He wants me to take him trick-or-treating in a few weeks. Of course he does. He doesn't know. Neither does my wife. That man is waiting for me. Obviously, this is not a real story,
Yeah.
but this person is a hell of a writer.
Holy crap. I was like, holy shit.
This person's a hell of a writer.
Yeah.
So, whoever you are, AP Clariot, as a writer and a publisher, you are a hell of a writer. So, yeah.
I don't want to go out on Halloween now.
Oh no, Halloween's a great holiday, Ben. Why do you hate it so?
That's a great writing. Okay.
Oh.
Let's go to Ghost Stories. This is called My Imaginary Friend by...
Another imaginary person.
Oh, wait. No. No, that's the same one. Hold on. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I clicked on the same one. There we go. Picture at Night. This is a really short one. Bunny MC3. I used to live in a trailer years ago and experienced many paranormal things. One night while I was awake, I got an overwhelming feeling of being watched. So I grabbed my camera and started to take pictures to see if I could capture anything. I kept getting black streaks that look like smoke in my pictures. I probably took 20 pictures, each one having the same effect. I saved the pictures and planned on looking at them in the morning in case I missed something. I laid back down after turning off the camera and setting it on the stand beside me, and I went to sleep. I woke up the next morning and anxious to look at the pictures to see if I caught something. To my surprise, the first picture that came up was a picture of us sleeping. It's as if someone stood over our bed and took a picture. I freaked out. The camera was on the stand when I woke up, and there's no way someone snuck into our place. We moved out shortly after.
Eesh.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so honestly, okay. Might change this no sleep. It looks like it's mostly stories. Um, let's see. Okay, I found it. I found a better one. Okay, so this one is true scary stories.
Oh, great.
The other one was actually all fiction stories. So
Still a good one.
yeah, great. But this one is true. Okay, and this one has been marked as terrifying, like labeled as terrifying on Reddit. So, one of my neighbors threatened to kill his family on his birthday.
That's fucked up.
By Reddit user Ramobai. Okay, this happened 2 days ago. It was really insane. This is literally 2 days ago because this was posted 10 hours ago.
Oh.
It was really insane and odd that at the time that it happened, I was getting ready for work. It was pretty windy outside. My family forgot to close the balcony door to the patio. I head over to close it only to hear screaming and shouting. The noises are coming from behind my house, about 2 houses down to the left. I can hear a guy around mid-20s screaming at the top of his lungs at his family, I presume. I can hear his mom crying and his dad yelling as well. The guy says at first that it's his birthday and he just came back from work and never expected this. I'm assuming he didn't expect a surprise or something because the next thing he said was that he didn't want them to be in the house. Then I can hear his dad trying to calm him down, but literally the next phrases from the guy sent chills down my spine. He shouts repeatedly that he's going to murder everyone in the house. He's literally shouting so loud with so much anger that the noise can be heard throughout our entire neighborhood. It was so odd as well because my neighborhood is one of the quiet ones in the city, so it felt really scary and odd at the same time. I had to go to work, so I left. Around 9 p.m., 5 hours after the incident, I'm driving back from work, and I saw around 3 to 4 police cars parked down the road. I went straight to home, and I was really worried. I ended up learning from my siblings that apparently the guy self-harmed himself as the unwanted guests would leave. What was much scarier is that the guy claimed to the cops that he wanted the guests to leave since they were a part of a cult or something, and that they were here to brainwash his parents and him. It felt really weird and scary to hear this whole situation happening in my neighborhood.
That's creepy.
I can believe that happening. Guy tries to escape a cult, and then parents invite the cult back.
Okay, so our new old haunted house. Help me identify what this entity is. By Reddit user GothNeco99. This is a really long post. I apologize in advance. If anybody knows what is haunting my house, please let me know. I frequently attract ghosts to myself, and I tend to have the most activity amongst any other persons that I live with. A backstory unrelated because I have ADHD. I consider myself to have some sort of power due to the fact that I have dreams sometimes that come true. One night, I had nightmares that somebody was trapped in a car and screaming for help. The following night, my mom got a phone call at 11 at night. It was her best friend, and I got up and got dressed without a word and went over to my mom, and she was hanging up the phone, and I said, "Was that your friend?" She said, "Yes." Now, her friend's daughter was one of my friends in high school. I said, "My friend was in a car accident on the way home from work, wasn't she?" My mom was terrified because that was the phone call she had just got. My friend's car had flipped upside down and she was trapped. She's fine now, just to clarify. Okay, so for starters, my house was built in 1901, and it's one of the first few thousand homes to be built with electricity and lightning. I live not far from where Edison started implementing electricity back in 1882. Since moving into the house a year ago, we've had a lot of weird phenomena. We have a spiritual friend who will not touch the third floor, which is where we found a death certificate to the man who first owned the home. He also died in this home. That being said, we don't believe that there were any other deaths in the home. Now on to the scary ghost stories. Back in May, our cat was acting really strange for a few days. One night, I saw her sitting at the end of our hallway, and I looked at the other end of the hallway, and she was laying, sleeping on the bed. When I looked back, the other cat was gone. In July, I was sitting on our sofa, and my cat was asleep in my lap. I heard what sounded like somebody sitting on the couch cushions beside me, and I watched as the cushions sank like somebody was sitting on them. The cat had immediately woke up and was making a low, threatening growl, and then the cushions went back to normal, so whatever was sitting there stood up and left.
Good kitty.
Then last month, one night, I had a recurring nightmare. The nightmare was that I woke up and standing above me was a little girl, maybe 4 or 5 years old. She was in a black dress and she had long black hair and her skin was a pale, deadly gray-blue color. Her hair was also dripping wet along with her dress. In the nightmare, when I woke up, she was standing above me and proceeded to try and suck my soul out of me. After the nightmare repeated 4 times, I got up and went to go sit in our reading room on the chair directly across from the bottom of the stairs. I was sitting in the dark watching YouTube on my phone when I started hearing dripping sounds on the landing of the stairs. I looked up and she was standing there looking at me. Glanced down on my phone and turned my flashlight on, but then she disappeared. Now we get to last night. I had fallen asleep upstairs in our living room on a chair that was in the house when we bought it. Kept hearing a woman softly speaking in a sickening sweet voice. "Man, wake up." Maybe 5 or 6 times. When I bolted awake, my ears were ringing and the lights were flickering. The ringing was so bad that I couldn't hear for a solid 30 seconds and then everything stopped. I went downstairs to bed, but couldn't shake the feeling, so I laid and played on my phone beside my boyfriend. About an hour later, he bolted upright in bed and looked around frantically and was panting heavily like he was scared. About 15 minutes later, he did the same thing again. Now he doesn't remember any of this happening. About an hour later, I went back to our reading room, and the cat went up 3 stairs to the landing and was staring up at the top of the stairs. I tried to get her attention, but she would not stop staring. Then she did it again, that low, threatening growl. And after that, I was officially terrified. Last night was the last straw for me. This ghost needs to go. Someone please help me figure out what it is so I know how to get rid of it.
They have a lot of ghosts. There's a lot of ghosts. Ghost children, great. That's just what the doctor ordered there. I mean, I can believe that could happen. I mean,
Well, if they still have original furniture in the house from when the house is built, there's attachment there.
yeah. I mean, the older the property, the more history, and frankly, that cat deserves a lot of treats because it's probably warding off all that kinds of bad juju.
Yeah, animals tend to know when something's wrong. They can see into that world that we can't see, which is also terrifying.
Yeah, well, they have that the animal instincts. Just be glad they didn't have a cat and been like, yeah, fuck the humans. They don't give me food. They're all yours.
Okay. Off to True Scary Stories by Foxy Demon 32. It's titled "It Used My Mom's Face."
Oh no.
This happened when I was a little girl, and yet I remember it so clearly. I was maybe around 10, 11-ish. It's been almost 2 decades since this happened. and I was thirsty. It was the middle of the night, so I left my room to get me a drink of water. After getting my cup and the water jug from the fridge, I got on the floor as to not make a mess or a sound, and if I did accidentally make a mess, I could clean it quickly. Just as I started pouring water in my cup, I saw my mom out of the corner of my eye, and she looked pissed, like nothing I'd seen before or since. Probably because I should have been in bed, was my first thought. But when I looked over, whatever that thing was gone. So I went back to pouring my water, but it kept happening. And every single time I looked over, my mom was gone. Each time it happened, though, I remember feeling even more scared because whatever that thing was had the most malicious intent. I could just feel the negativity wash off her in waves. And I just wanted to get back to my room and forget the whole thing. I was so scared. As soon as I left the kitchen, I felt this weight lifted from my chest, and I didn't want to go back in there to check. In the morning, I asked my mom if she was in the kitchen at any point in the night. Unfortunately, she was fast asleep all night. Wasn't until I was in my late teens before I told anyone what happened. My mom thinks I imagined it, and my cousin, who's very much into the occult, spelled occult wrong, theorized so many things from the house was haunted just for that second in time. I had one of those leeching spirits. I just know that whatever the fuck it was scared me shitless as a kid, and I never left my room in the middle of the night for a long, long time. The weirder thing, at least I think so, is that it hasn't happened since. And know that, not that I'm asking for whatever it was to come back.
Why would you ever want it to come back?
That's creepy.
Yeah.
Freaking
mimic ghosts.
Yeah. That was my first instinct. It was a mimic.
And not the good kind.
No.
Not the D&D kind.
Hey, like toilet mimics. Like, those aren't good kind.
They are a good kind.
They are.
No. Hey, if we solve whatever...
They're not real.
If we figure out what these ghosts are, do these points cross over to Phasmophobia or Demonologist?
No. Damn. Back to ghost stories. 3 of my personal encounters, from least to most spooky. From Condition Hopeful 731. Disclaimer. I'm not going to lie. I'm one of those people who has had quite a few unexplainable things happen to them in their life, even from a young age. I don't think I have any kind of special connection to the beyond or anything like that. I'm just a really perceptive person. I can notice when even something small in a room I'm familiar with has been changed purely based on the vibes in the room being different than usual. Not one of those people who lies to get attention. I know a few people like that. And if you knew me, you know that I don't just ignore weird sounds or write things off as my imagination. I'm hypervigilant, some say paranoid, and I will investigate and try to find explanations for the unexplainable. These stories are just a few of the ones I haven't been able to explain. Number 1, bathroom ghosts.
Oh, why?
In elementary school, there was a bathroom that I and the other girls in my class used to always joke about being haunted. We were a small, close-knit group of classmates, and we would frequently have sleepovers and watch horror movies that were probably way too scary for a bunch of 6th graders to watch without adult supervision. But we enjoyed it. The bathroom in question had 3 stalls in it, and the one in the middle would occasionally make flushing noises on its own for seemingly no reason. None of us ever really believed it was haunted. It was mostly a joke, and we didn't take it seriously. One day I had to go to the bathroom in the middle of class, so I was excused and went down there by myself. Let me describe the layout of this bathroom as it's important to the story. The entrance to the bathroom starts with a heavy wooden door that creaks loudly and has an iconic swishing sound when it closes. Then you turn right to make your way out from behind the privacy wall, and you get to the part of where the bathroom sinks. 3 total on a ledge connected to the wall. From there, facing the sinks, you can turn and see the 3 bathroom stalls off to the right. 2 normal and 1 handicap that are against the back wall, parallel to the sinks. Directly in front of the 2 normal bathroom stalls is a blank wall that makes the area in front of the stalls feel narrow, like a little hallway. In front of the handicap stall, the space in front of it opens up to a deeper room that has a bench for people to sit, and a small shower off in the corner that nobody ever uses, but is otherwise an empty tile room. So I get in there, and for some reason, maybe forgetfulness, I go into the middle stall. The bathroom was completely empty, but maybe a minute or two later, I heard the loud squeak of the heavy wooden door opening and closing, someone coming into the bathroom with me. I could hear the footsteps of them passing the sinks before I saw their shoes walk past the stall that I was in from under the door. They were little kid shoes, maybe pink Skechers, the kind with the little decorations on the side that look like they should be able to light up. These ones looked really muddy and dirt covered. I watched them walk past me and didn't hear the footsteps anymore, so I assumed they went into the handicap stall to my right. Normally, I wouldn't have paid any attention to this, but I was a sixth grader at the time, and the kid who'd walked past me seemed to be around kindergarten to first grade age. And since that part of the school, since the part of the school that had the little kids' classrooms was all the way on the other side of the school, I thought I should wait for them to finish and walk them back to their class. And then I could tell them that the next time they needed to use the bathroom, they should go to the ones near their own classrooms. So I finished up and left the stall to go wash my hands. While I was standing there waiting for them to come out, I realized that none of the stall doors were closed. At this point, I wasn't sure that the kid had come here to hide from class. So I went to go see what they were up to. As I peeked in the door of the handicap stall, nobody was in there. Nobody was in any of the stalls, actually. I went into the deeper room to look for them, wondering if they had gone to hide in the shower, but they weren't there either. They weren't under the bench or the sinks, and unless they had somehow managed to climb up the walls and squeeze into the ceiling tiles, there wasn't anywhere else to hide. I swear, I never heard the door to the bathroom open for them to leave. I never saw their feet walk back by my stall. I could see all the way to the wall in front of the stalls. They couldn't have gone past me unnoticed. I never heard their footsteps, and their extremely muddy shoes didn't leave a single print on the otherwise clean floor. They were just gone. Needless to say, I went back to class quite a bit paler than I had been before and told my friends. After that, the stuff about the bathroom being haunted didn't really feel like jokes anymore.
That's a little
That's the
creepy.
least creepy one.
Huh?
Yeah, that's least to most.
Oh, geez.
That's the least creepy.
That's one of those things. It's like a slow burn creep. Like you're like, okay, where are you? And then you realize, oh shit. And then I would have bolted. I'd been like,
Shadow Man.
oh
no.
hey, we're getting better. It's getting better.
Those.
This next story is a contender for one of the scariest things that I've ever seen with my own eyes. The year was either 2016 or 2017. I was a freshman in high school.
Oh.
Jesus.
That makes me feel old.
God. And I had just gotten out of my weekly dance class across town. My dad came to pick me up because I couldn't drive, so I was sitting in the passenger seat as he took me home. It was fall, sometime around 8 or 9 p.m., and it was dark outside. There's a shortcut my dad likes to take to avoid some traffic lights by driving down a smaller road that connects two of the larger ones. This road is lined with some less flashy businesses like car repair shops, HVAC repair, and a tax firm or something. It's a place with minimal streetlights. There's a business at the edge of the street near where we turn on that I always look at because its address is 2221, and there's kind of a running joke in my family to point out triple numbers for some reason. The building only has the ground floor and is a little bit house-shaped, sloped roof, brick and wood paneling, and wooden front doors. Except that instead of one front door, it has two, one on the left, one on the right, and the wall lights beside either door to show that the stores were still open. As my dad turns onto the street, my eyes drift towards the building nonchalantly as usual, except this time, what I saw there was nothing but usual. The doors weren't closed first at all. The left one was cracked open slightly, and I could see a man peering out from inside. He was an African-American man, maybe in his 30s or 40s, and he was poking his head out from behind the door, keeping his body shielded behind the wood like one might do if they were opening the door to someone they didn't trust. What got my attention the most about this man was the look on his face, pure terror. It gave me chills. His eyes were open so wide that even from the street I could see the whites of his eyes all the way around his irises, and his mouth was ajar as if he was frozen in shock. He wasn't moving, just staring out into the parking lot in front of him. As our car continued around the corner, I followed his gaze to try and see what he was looking at, then I saw it. The parking lot wasn't empty like I had previously thought. There was a man standing about 10 feet away from him, except it wasn't a man, it was a shadow. but not flat against the pavement. It was standing up perpendicular to the ground like a person would. But I could see through its shadowy form all the way to the car repair shop in the background. I practically pressed my face up against the glass to get a better look. The man was tall, definitely over 6 feet, probably closer to 7 or 8 feet tall, and he was thin and lanky. I could see the silhouette of clothing on him. He was wearing a top hat with a wide brim and a long coat, a trench coat, or maybe a suit with tails. I couldn't tell. And he was holding a cane. Looked like he was talking to the man behind the door, at least staring him down. I watched the scene for as long as I could, craning my neck to watch them as our car drove past. I could see the shadow man from all angles, his right side, his back, then his left. I could see the wall-mounted porch light through his back, and though the light touched him, he himself didn't cast a shadow. And once they were out of sight, I spun around to ask my dad, "Did you see that?" And of course his reply was, "See what?" Told him what I saw, and he laughed, but it was fair. I wouldn't have believed it except that I saw it with my own eyes. I didn't ask my dad to turn back because honestly, I was afraid. The whole ride home and the rest of the night for that matter, I kept replaying what I saw over and over in my head. It felt like I got a glimpse into someone else's waking nightmare. It felt like I saw something I wasn't supposed to. The next time we drove by that building, everything was normal, but a few weeks later, there was a sign on the door, and I got the impression that the business was relocating. I didn't look into it, though, and now I wish I had. At the time, I never even heard of the Hat Man or whatever people call him. It wasn't until a few months later that I saw about it online and realized it basically matched what I saw that night.
Oh, boy.
Fuck that. Nope. Mm-mm.
Okay.
How creeped out am I going to be at this next one?
This one is called Church Radio.
I may be creeped out by this one.
This one is the scariest in my opinion because it felt personal. All of the paranormal experiences I've had, even the ones I haven't told here, I felt like I was getting a glimpse into something I usually couldn't see, but this one felt directed. The year was either 2017 or 2018. I was probably a sophomore in high school. And it took place at my church. My church isn't hallowed ground or anything. We're in a building that's just a warehouse with the interior changed to look like a church. Up until this point, I could feel an energy there, but it had only been small things like creaking floors, cold rooms, feeling breathing on my neck. Just a general uneasiness about the back hallway. So, typical church.
Yep.
But this was the moment that solidified my bad feelings. It was around 9 p.m. on a Wednesday. The weekly youth group had wrapped up, and everyone had gone home except for me and my mom because she had keys to lock up the building. My mom needed to water some of the plants, and she asked me to go look around for anything that needed cleaning up. I went down to the back hallway and began checking the rooms for messes. When I got to the nursery, I flipped the light switch on and saw that one of the toys in the room was out and had a lot of its pieces out on the table against the back wall. The only other thing on the table was an old AM/FM radio that nobody ever used. I got to work putting the pieces back together and putting the toy back in its place. When I was done, I looked over the room one more time and all was well, so I turned to leave. When I made it to the door and reached to turn the light off, however, I got a weird feeling. Felt like something inside of me was telling me to wait and that there was something that I needed to watch. So I turned around and I waited. To this day, I don't know why I did this, standing there, staring into an empty room like that. I guess I just felt like I was supposed to. I was waiting there like that for somewhere between 30 seconds and a minute, feeling stupid, but then something happened. The radio turned on, all by itself. My eyes were wide as I watched the little red line begin to move across the channels as hissing static played loudly over the speakers. After a few seconds, I began to hear a voice. It was a man, and his voice was deep and gargled by the static. He was either speaking in a language that I couldn't recognize, or his voice was so drowned out by the static I couldn't understand him. This went on for a good 15 to 30 seconds, till the voice stopped and the radio turned itself back off. And I just stood there. I think I was in shock. Before that moment, it had never even occurred to me that the radio was plugged in, let alone still worked. Stood there for a minute or two. I felt frozen, waiting for the radio to turn back on and the man to speak to me again, but it never happened. What snapped me out of my paralysis, however, was the smell that began to drift towards me from the side of the room, the radio. It smelled like rotten eggs. At this point in my life, I'd seen enough about ghosts and demons online to know the smell of rotten eggs or sulfur could only mean bad things, so I switched the lights off and bolted out of the room to go find my mom in the church kitchen. The shock had worn off, and my brain was in full problem solving mode. The sink in the kitchen has a history of giving off a slightly sulfuric scent when using hot water, so I ran to ask my mom if she'd been running hot water. She said she'd only used the cold. Kitchen didn't smell like rotten eggs, so how could the smell have gotten all the way to the nursery that was a few hallways away? Still shake when telling the story. To this day, I have no idea what happened. All I know is it was trying to talk to me. If anyone has similar stories or insight they can give me, I would love to hear it.
Oh, fuck. In a church?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's a demon.
Yeah, that is.
That's like the one place what makes it even more creepy is that's supposed to be the one place you're safe.
That they can't go on into.
But remember, this isn't hallowed ground.
It's
true. A warehouse.
Yeah.
It's not hallowed ground. So, okay. Scary stories. Hooded man barged into my motel room.
I mean, that's very... What?
Yeah.
That's definitely not cool.
Let's see. Okay, this one's, I mean, it's weird, but it's not scary. She runs into the guy later. There we go. There's one.
Oh, no.
Figure with beady eyes watched us from an upstairs window. From Reddit user Tales the Fox 8. A few years ago, 2020, 2021 maybe, when I was about 11 years old. 11 in 2020. God. Me and some other kids were playing in the driveway. For context, I live in a townhouse sort of setup, which means a bunch of houses bunched together side by side into one big long building. The driveway was behind one of these big long buildings, and the back windows of each house could look down upon the driveway. Me and a bunch of other kids around my age who lived around were playing and hanging out in and around the driveway. Can't remember what it was we were doing, but whatever it was eventually led to a glass bottle being broken in the middle of the driveway. This wasn't good since broken glass could easily pop the tires of oncoming cars, so the others started cleaning up all the shards and putting it into the dumpster at the end of the driveway. I was just walking along watching since I wasn't involved in breaking of the bottle. After we had put all the shards in the dumpster, we headed back down the driveway to continue whatever it was we were doing. As we were heading down the driveway, however, I just happened to look up in the window of one of the houses about 2 away from my own. When I looked, I saw something that would stick with me for the next 4 years up until this very day. There was a strange figure watching us from the window. It was a bit humanoid, but the strange thing about it was the head and face. The face appeared pale, not visibly having a mouth, and overall lacking details that one would normally find in a human face. It seemed to have a nose, but there was no visible nostrils, just a lump where the nose would be. The eyes were small and beady and dot-like, almost like one of those weird photoshops from the 2010s of cartoon characters in real life. I remember it to be bald, however, I could be wrong. Almost as soon as I noticed it, it seemed to notice me, so it quickly closed the curtains and vanished. Proceeded to tell everyone about what I had seen, and they were all pretty creeped out by it. It stuck with me ever since. The more I've thought about it, the more I think it may be since I was looking at it for so little time. Maybe in the split second it was within my view, my brain didn't have time to make out all the details, so maybe it was just an average-looking person wondering what the glass breaking sound was. I don't know, it was still quite a creepy occurrence, and it left me scared for a few days after knowing the house I saw it in was ever so close to mine. For those who are going to ask, no, I will not share the location of this counter for the sake of my own privacy.
Holy crap.
The one thing that I want to know is, was the house vacant?
I don't know.
It could have just been a trick of the mind, really.
That's what I'm thinking, because unless the house was vacant...
Then it's really creepy.
Yeah.
The Drowned Twin.
Oh.
By Reddit user Mr. Speed Mojo 97.
Lovely.
This story is absolutely legendary amongst my family, so I thought I'd share it online. When I was a kid, I can't remember what age I was, but me and my two older sisters, my parents, and my aunt all moved into a big 8-bedroom suburban 2-story house with a pool, wine bar, and everything fancy in between, like a laundry chute. It was a great place to live for a big family like us. My aunt got the majority of the top floor since she officially owned the house, and understandably got first pick except for one bedroom, which my sister took while the rest of us were living downstairs. The stereotypical lifestyle plays out throughout the years with a busy family, family pool parties, barbecues, sitting around a winter fire barrel, exchanging ghost stories. They always tune out due to initially sounding like boring BS that people spread around campfires. Dogs running around causing chaos with leaving fleas and dog shit everywhere, and cats just sitting around loitering all day. Very adorable. We lived there for about 10 years, and throughout the years my sisters both grew up, got boyfriends, and or eventually moved out. Then I graduated from high school, and we decided to finally move out since it was time to move on and downsize. Soon, the day of the move, my aunt had already moved out at this point, so it was just me and my parents with some helping hand friends. And while my family was loading the moving truck, a fart machine I got my dad for Father's Day a couple months prior had just started going off on its own. We checked both controllers and nobody had touched them. In fact, nobody knew it was there since we were all busy with the move. We all stood there staring at it go off a few times, completely speechless, not knowing how to react. I hesitatingly laughed it off, joking that this house was haunted. Soon after that, I went upstairs to check if we had left anything behind before we finally left for the new house. Lo and behold, I saw a reflection in the bedroom window standing next to my reflection of a child who was a splitting image of my child self, but he was soaked just like swimming in the pool, wearing a kid's black and blue swimmers t-shirt, and I presumed he was wearing a blue swim shorts with a bowl haircut, and I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. He just there innocently smiling and waving goodbye before fading away and disappearing. I couldn't help but wave back and whisper, "Goodbye, little dude." Then I proceeded to hastily leave the house, pretending that didn't happen, as me and my family finally moved into a new chapter of our lives. Lately, I've asked my sisters about the fart box situation, and they just laughed and said, "Bro, that place was haunted for years, and you never even noticed. Kept on seeing you in the house when you were at your friend's place. Aunt Sally," fake name, "saw you standing at the end of her bed staring at her in the middle of the night. We all saw you during various occasions just standing by the poolside staring at us throughout the years." Then my sister went over the history of the house. She and my other sister both looked up all those years ago. Found out that it's because a kid who looked like me drowned in that pool about a few decades before we moved in. So they had realized that the house was low key haunted, and the entire time these hauntings were happening, I was completely obliviously unaware of the whole situation. I personally never experienced any hauntings until the last day. So I figured that I looked so much like him, he saw fit to leave me alone or have my back by haunting my sisters whenever they were being stereotypical, annoying sisters. So, in conclusion, I had a ghost bunkmate who looked and acted like my unofficial twin brother that I never had. I heard a lot of ghost stories about hauntings being bad, but sometimes it's just a true blessing in disguise. Hope that kid has happily moved on into the afterlife by now, or just having a blast haunting the shit out of his new roommates. If he has moved on, may he finally rest in peace.
Okay, that one's sad.
Yeah, it is sad.
Yeah. I don't know if I believe it, but
Yeah. Bit of a coincidence that there's a ghost that looked almost like you when you were a kid haunting.
you've never seen it.
Yeah.
So let's see. Okay.
Children ghosts freak me the fuck out. I
Yeah.
hate child ghosts.
As they should. They're just.
Because you don't know if it's an actual child ghost or something that's even worse.
And in most cases, it is always something worse.
Yeah. I don't know why they freak me out so much. Just the idea of a child not being able to move on. That's sad.
It is.
So I want to kind of move to like the top 8 most haunted places in Kentucky.
Oh no.
See how?
So, this is Liberty Hall in Frankfort.
Okay.
John Brown was one of Kentucky's first senators, and in 1796 he built a family home in Frankfort. Many people have lived and died in that home, from slaves to relatives. Today, there are said to be 3 primary spirits that exist in a state of unrest. The first and most famous is Miss Margaret Varick, aka the Gray Lady. She is said to have traveled around 800 miles to attend the funeral of a family member, only to succumb to a heart attack after her journey. Initially buried in the garden, rumors say her body was later moved. Now her restless spirit is said to wander the grounds, opening doors, closing doors, and always wearing gray. A Spanish opera performer visited and disappeared mysteriously from the mansion in 1805. His spirit is also said to roam the property, along with a figure wearing a soldier's uniform. The young lad is reported to gaze into a ground-level window with a forlorn, love-struck expression.
Okay. No. I'm not going there. No.
Kentucky State Penitentiary in Eddyville.
We are nope.
Is this a still active prison, or is this just like?
I believe it's. I don't think it exists anymore. Oh, it exists, but I don't think it's used. Most of us never want to see the inside of Kentucky State Penitentiary at 266 Water Street, but the structure itself is phenomenal. It's the oldest prison in the state, built in 1886. The architecture is not only solid, but also a work of art. The intricately designed building was made to hold prisoners, but many a spirit has also made their home here. Due to its age, one can only imagine the horrific conditions, treatment, and executions that took place within these walls. Modern inmates and guards alike tell tales of strange orbs, footsteps when no one is there, voices, disembodied screams, and other hair-raising experiences. Just because a prisoner's body dies here doesn't mean the soul's rest.
What did you say the address was?
266 Water Street.
This is a still active prison.
Yeah, it is still an active prison.
Oh my god!
Just
And
way to
it's
go.
in Kentucky's only male maximum security institution. I would. Oh my god! Could
We
you
need to
imagine
go.
being sent to a haunted prison?
Camp Taylor in Louisville. Camp Taylor might just be the second most haunted neighborhood in the U.S. This small community was once a military camp named after General Zachary Taylor.
Oh, former president too.
The streets are named after other generals like Sherman and Lee. During the camp's time as a military site, the tuberculosis epidemic struck Louisville. Camp Taylor was devastated by the disease, and bodies were said to be stacked from floor to ceiling in some of the buildings. Ghostly soldiers and even a few women from a bygone bordello are said to wander the neighborhood. Many residents have reported seeing soldiers walking in formation across the fields and streets, and a blonde woman in a blue Victorian-era dress is also known to wander the area. A young girl also roams Taylor Boulevard along with soldiers, but her origin is unknown. Need to go visit there.
No, we're good.
Well, you said Camp Taylor. I thought, oh, is this an army installation?
It was.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Old Talbot Tavern in Bardstown. So this tavern is still open that we can go visit. It was built in 1779. It's at 107 Stephen Foster Avenue. Now known as the City of Bardstown, the community had no name when the tavern was constructed. It was a well-known stagecoach stop that had seen many travelers, including Jesse James and a banished king.
Oh, shit.
There are several rooms that hold scars from visits by Jesse James, including one where he was attacked, and another where James thought he saw someone in his room and fired his weapon repeatedly, leaving bullet holes in the wall. It's rumored that that specter was the very first ghost reported in the Old Talbot Tavern. Visitors today report hearing strange footsteps and disembodied voices, seeing the apparitions of a man and a woman, and doors opening on their own.
I'm looking at their menu.
We can go to Bardstown.
No,
It's
I'm
2
good.
hours away.
It's a restaurant.
God, honey, some of the stuff
It's
in
a
here is
tavern.
they have
And
bourbon
it's-
barbecue meatballs.
And
We're
Jesse
going.
James.
We're-
Place that Jesse James himself visited and shot.
They have fried pickles.
Yeah, we'll go.
So does Twin Peaks.
Bardstown's not that
We're
far
going
away.
to Bardstown. We're going to Old Talbot and
All right, Waverly Hills Sanatorium.
Hell no. Fuck no. Fuck that place. Never going.
This is in Louisville. This one's very famous. This was on tons of stuff, Ghost Hunters
oh
and all
god,
Um,
like this is at this point. At this
Ghost
point,
Asylum.
yeah.
that.
At this point, I think the ghosts should just start their own like Patreon thing. You can get some money in the afterlife.
Even those unfamiliar with Waverly Hill's twisted past can agree that the ominous structure looks creepy, even from a distance. The Gothic structure was built in the early 1900s as a tuberculosis hospital, and later a mental hospital and geriatric center. The death count here was so high that patients were delivered for burial and disposal through a tunnel system deemed the death tunnel. This was done to prevent panic among the residents, and it wasn't just the ill who lost their lives at Waverly. A nurse is known to have hung herself in the bell tower, and her spirit is said to wander the halls of Waverly along with many patients. People who take footage or photos at Waverly often later find floating orbs and distortions in the images. The sanatorium has been featured in a barrage of television specials, including ABC and Fox's Scariest Places on Earth, Zone Reality's Creepy Most Haunted, Paranormal Challenge, Ghost Hunters, and VH1 Celebrities Paranormal Project.
I've seen, I want to say, back in, we're all wrestling fans, back when they had the resurgence of the ECW in like the mid 2000s, Elijah Burke, I believe they did, especially with the Ghost Hunters, they went into Waverly Hills.
This next place that we're going to talk about is no longer in Wilder, Kentucky. Bobby Mackey's. They actually just moved it. They took everything, moved it to a new site because the building was just so dilapidated.
It looked like it was.
I've been in there. Bobby Mackey's is great. It's a bar, and they do bull riding and stuff like that.
Is it that building that we passed when we were going to like?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That is gone
that
now.
the new?
They moved it.
Okay.
They moved
so
it.
No, I can go. Now I'll go.
I believe. Where did they move it to?
I don't know. That I saw that building. That I mean, it looked abandoned even from the outside when I saw it full of people.
Bobby Mackey's is one of those that.
This isn't a dig. Yeah, this isn't a dig on Bobby Mackey's and the people who ran it. I'm sure they ran a fine institution.
So it's actually in Florence right now. Temporarily, they moved it temporarily to Florence while they're rebuilding that site.
Okay,
and then they're moving back.
Cool. They're gonna stir up more ghosts. That's cool.
So
I will go while it's in Florence. Once it goes back to the
Bobby
site.
Mackey's is great. Come for the ghost, stay for the music, proclaims the website for Bobby Mackey's Music World, which stakes its claim as the most haunted nightclub in America. This historic roadhouse gains its paranormal reputation after two Satanists murdered and beheaded a woman named Pearl Bryan in 1897. Her body was found in a field not far from the building. Another legend holds that a pregnant dancer named Johanna poisoned herself here in the 1950s after her father murdered her lover, a singer at the club, by hanging him in a dressing room. Visitors today can book private ghost tours that include Johan's dressing room, the Wall of Faces room, Hell's Gate, and other areas where the dead are said to make themselves.
Nope, I am 100% good not doing that.
Cave Hill Cemetery in Louisville.
Oh, jeez.
What's up with Louisville?
Louisville
Isn't Louisville like really old though?
Yeah, it is. Cave Hill Cemetery is a resting place for many famed Kentuckians, including the Frito-Lay magician Colonel Harlan Sanders. Yeah, Colonel Sanders is there.
Could you imagine you can see the ghost like one of those newer ghost shows? What's the one we watch, honey? The one, the one.
The Tennessee Ray Tracer one?
No. That funny comedy ghost show we watch.
Oh, Ghost?
Yeah, Ghost. Oh, yeah. You imagine just going there, seeing a ghost just like that, and you just see a cemetery, and there's just Colonel Sanders just walking
eating a bucket of fried chicken
for eternity.
And most recently, Muhammad Ali.
Colonel Sanders and Muhammad Ali eating chicken.
It is located at 701 Baxter Avenue in Louisville and was built back in the 1800s. The grounds were designed in the peak of the Victorian era to be a garden-style resting place for deceased upperclass soldiers. It's not uncommon in modern times to hear unexplained sounds and footsteps in the cemetery. There are also a variety of orbs and unexplained lights that appear at night and on film. Ornate tombstones and statues stand guard over bones, but the spirits are still said to wander. Those who have entered the cemetery at night deem it a hub of paranormal activity.
Okay, no, I don't like cemeteries.
So, Old Louisville in Louisville. During the late 1800s and early 1900s, the Old Louisville neighborhood was the premier community in Kentucky. Area featured beautiful French Revival and Georgian architectural designs, with many castle-like turrets and stained glass windows. Some residents loved it so much they chose to hang around after death. And death has visited this neighborhood often over the years, including a tuberculosis epidemic that wiped out much of the population and many unexplained tragedies, including fires, mysterious deaths, and suicides. A high concentration of spirits are said to roam the area today, including women, men, and children who perished during the tuberculosis epidemic. In particular, many people report seeing an old woman who turns into a black cat, a man with a cloak and a hat who lingers near 6th and Hill, and a dark-haired woman in a Victorian-era dress. Old Louisville has appeared on the Travel Channel and several paranormal television shows, and is regarded as one of the country's most haunted neighborhoods.
Hey, we can do a ghost tour in Louisville.
Nope, I'm good.
We're doing it.
Okay, you two can do it. I'm not. I want to stay home where my happy ass is safe.
Um,
No,
Yeah.
you won't. I draw the line of ghost tours. You know this.
So, and then we are going to wrap up with the most haunted places in Ohio,
Oh yeah, we do live near
because
that
we are
state,
close
don't
to
we?
Ohio. 10. Malabar Farm State Park in Lucas, Ohio.
Malabar?
Malabar is a historic landmark located in Ohio State Park, Lucas, and the former home of Pulitzer Prize-winning author and conservationist Louis Bromfield. You can tour the grounds as well as the farm's main house, but be on the lookout for old Louis and his many furry companions. Volunteers working at the house report hearing strange, unexplained sounds, such as a chair being pushed away from a desk in the room Louis occupied, even when no one was upstairs. Other accounts detail odd smells coming from upstairs, and some visitors have even reported feeling unseen cats brush up against their legs. The spirit of Louis Bromfield has been spotted sitting by the window in his old bedroom, perhaps still struggling with a bad case of ghostwriter's block.
Apparently, there's also a Sealy Rose there as Malabar Park. Murder there.
South Bass Island Lighthouse in Put-in Bay. Put-in Bay, which is put-in-bay, is a quaint little town in South Bass Island on the appropriately named Lake Erie. The town is quiet and beautiful, making it a popular vacation spot for tourists, many of whom would never guess its creepy history. In the late 18th century, a smallpox epidemic ravaged the county. A young man named Samuel Anderson became overwhelmed and depressed by the death and disease that surrounded him and took his own life by jumping from a cliff by the lighthouse. Visitors touring the area sometimes hear the sound of something splashing in the water. When they look to see what's making it, nothing is there. Other visitors touring the lighthouse report hearing footsteps creeping up the stairs and doors slamming shut on their own. Let's go visit there.
Nope.
It's about 4.5 hours away. We had to take a ferry to get to it, though.
That's fine.
I get seasick, so I don't have to go.
Yeah, there's stuff for that.
Yes.
That makes me pass out, so I'm
You'll
good.
be fine.
Nope. I'm
Don't
not
worry,
going.
honey. Every time you keep saying you can't go to a haunted place, we will find a way to get you
Yes.
there.
Even if we have to knock you out, we will drag your body, and then you'll wake up in that lighthouse.
No, the fuck, no.
There's Moonville Tunnel in MacArthur. Even without knowing its history, the Moonville Tunnel sends shivers up the spine. Located deep in the woods, the tunnel is framed by a faded stone archway covered in moss. The tunnel itself is long and extremely dark, swallowing up the light from each opening. The tunnel is actually an out-of-work stretch of railroad track that leads to an old coal mining town. If you're brave enough to venture through it, you might see the ghost of Frank Lawhead, an unlucky train conductor who met his end in a head-on collision with another train. Visitors to the area have taken photos with their cameras or phones, only to look back at them later and notice the pale figure of a man they didn't see before, or phantom train lights blazing at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, that is.
I want to go see that.
That is
That's
in
cr-
that is in
Haunted
the
train
middle
tunnel?
of nowhere.
Yeah,
Apparently, like Moonville is more or less a ghost town.
no pun intended.
oh,
Patterson Tower in Kettering.
wait a minute, Patterson Tower.
Yeah, in Kettering.
Wait a minute, hold on.
Have you been there?
I haven't been there, but I've been. I swear, I think I've been by this area because I've done a lot of my civilian job. I do a lot of work in Kettering.
All right, so the hulking form of Patterson Tower looms over Hills and Dales Metro Park in Kettering, Ohio. Massive and made of stone, the tower more closely resembles the home of an evil witch than anything you're likely to find in present-day Ohio. In fact, it even has a nickname, Frankenstein's Castle.
That's it.
And while Frankenstein may not lurk here, local legends hold that a teenage ghost named Peggy Harmison does. According to the story, Peggy and her friends snuck out to the park one rainy night when lightning struck the tower, killing her instantly. Her spirit seems permanently linked to the rain, and they say her ghost appears every time it storms. Visitors of the tower report hearing the screams of a young girl in bad rainstorms, and others report seeing a ghostly face peering down at them from the tower's peak.
That's creepy.
I want to go see it.
I swear, I think I passed the area of it.
The woods surrounding London, Ohio. A far cry from London, England. The city of London, Ohio is just north of a dense forest located at the corner of Old Xenia and Robert Mills Road. Deep inside these woods sits an old abandoned barn that has rotted away so much that it is practically melded back into the trees. It is here that the ghosts are rumored to linger. If you ask anyone from the area, they'll tell you that these woods are haunted. According to the story, a family of 5 was traveling through the woods in the late 1890s when they were stopped and killed by a band of thieves. Those brave enough to wander through the woods of London at night have reported hearing gunshots and disembodied screams. Others have felt a sudden drop in temperature before seeing a strange white mist hanging in the trees.
Oh, no, thank you.
All right. Licking County Jail in Newark. Originally opening and locking its doors in 1889, the Licking County Jail is now home only to prisoners serving afterlife sentences. Its spiral turrets and castle-like exterior invoke the same sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach that the prisoners who first marched up its steps must have felt. Inside isn't much better, with stacks of cramped, grimy cells lining its abysmally lit halls. Since being put out of commission, the jail has become a notoriously haunted hotspot and a must-see for any paranormal enthusiast. While it was operating, a total of 3 sheriffs and 19 inmates died on the premises. It was only open for a year.
That many deaths in 1 year?
That's it. If you make your way to the Licking County Jail, be sure to peer between the cell bars, as the spectral figures of prisoners are said to peer back. Some visitors even report hearing strange howling cries echoing through its halls. We need to go. State Route 29.
State Route 29.
Considering that nothing remains of the house that once stood here, it's no surprise that the empty expanse of burnt grass off State Route 29 is among the most haunted places in Ohio. The small plot of land is flanked by 2 large cornfields and marked by a walkway of trees. Family who once lived here was killed by a fire that ravaged their home as they slept. Drivers passing the lot on nights when the moon is bright claim they can see the shadowy outline of a house at the end of the trees. Others driving by report smelling smoke. By far the creepiest stories involve drivers speeding along the freeway by the house, only to spot the badly burned figure of a young girl in headlights. By the time they hit the brakes, the girl had vanished.
Oh, that's creepy. No.
Van Wagner Road in Oak Run Township. The only road in Ohio that is more haunted than State Route 29 is undoubtedly Van Wagner Road in Oak Run Township. According to the legend, a young woman was murdered by her jealous husband in a home just off the road. Drivers passing through report spotting a young woman in a bloody white nightgown asking for help on the side of the road. When they stop to help her, she wrings her hands nervously and refuses to get in the car. Feeling creeped out, the drivers report the incident to the police, who have become completely overwhelmed by similar reports over the years. Though her body was recovered from a well on the property, the woman's husband was never charged with her murder. Number 2. The Sedumsville Rectory in Cincinnati.
This is called?
The Sedumsville Rectory. It's a historic Cincinnati building that once served as home for priests of Our Lady of Perpetual Help Church. Priests of questionable moral character were rumored to live here, including a man who had moved around considerably before retiring from the priesthood, leaving some to believe the church was covering up his tendency to torture animals. His fellow priests later confessed to hearing strange sounds coming from his bedroom and feeling uneasy in his presence. As the alleged site of the abuse, it's no wonder the place is host to some wicked demonic energy. Reports detail strange howling cries and deep scratches appearing in the flesh of workers. The current owner of the building, Terry Scott, even claimed that she was pushed by an invisible force. The presence haunting the rectory is so evil that a priest is called in to perform an exorcism. but his efforts did little to keep the demonic energy at bay, and whatever monster lurked in the rectory still remains. And then the last one is just talking about Bobby Mackey's.
Ooh.
So
We are actually only 10 minutes away from Sedumsville.
yeah,
Okay.
but yeah, so that is we could go on and on about haunted places, but like I said, this was kind of a loose kind of thing. And we are going to be moving on to our season finale series of one of my favorites, The Zodiac Killer. It's going to be a 4-part series, and that's how we're going to wrap up, and then we'll move on to season 3 already. So we want to thank everybody for visiting Scarlet Tavern. Please remember to push in your chairs, turn in your glasses, and as always, tip the bard. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.